Hi everyone, in this video I want to talk one of the key components of winning matches, and this is communication, team communication. Now if you're playing Valorant close beta, you probably know that this game you're gonna find many people actually very proactive when it comes to communication. Although of course there are many others who not communicating at all, but this can be for various reasons. For example, language barrier. So for example, you can speak English, other people in the party can't speak. Some people just mute other people because they are being toxic, so they don't enjoy playing the game like this. So just prefer muting everybody by default. Now, whatever the reason is, without communication, you're gonna probably find yourself having very hard time winning matches. Now you can see some players actually typing things in a chat instead of actually saying anything by voice, which is of course preferred than doing anything. But when you are in middle of the action, it's really hard to pay attention, or sometimes you don't really pay attention at all to the text at the bottom left side. Although it has kind of a sound, so there's kind of a notification that you know that a text has been submitted there. But the thing is that when you are playing in a very in the middle of the action, you probably won't pay attention to this. So, of course, voice is the preferred communication. You can see professional players doing this, and there's no good replacement for this, especially not the text one. But if for any reason you don't want to, you have no option, for example, you don't have a microphone, or whatever the reason is, it's better, of course, to communicate using text than not doing anything. Now, even if you do communicate using voice, it's very important to know how to do this well. Now, let me tell you a few examples. For sometimes people just say something like behind you, on the left, and on the right, and sometimes these, of course, type of communication are not really accurate and can actually be misleading, because if there are a few people actually playing, you need to say the name so the other person knows that you are talking to him or her. So if somebody says like behind you and is not talking to me, I would think that something is behind me, and if I look, maybe I get shot from the front. Now, of course, if I am the only person left, this makes sense. Another example, people say something, they are coming. And coming actually to where? How many of them? So again, you need to be very precise. Tell the exact location, how many actually enemies you are seeing, and maybe some hints of their movement, because by the time you give this communication, maybe another enemy can run to a different area, and you need to give your teammate the most accurate and precise information so they can actually know where the enemy is located. This actually happened yesterday, and somebody told me it's on the left side, and I kind of sure is there, and I actually aiming left, and the other person shot me like front right. He was sorry, but I said he's sorry. But the thing is that, for example, if you are not sure, you say is probably or something like that, because if you're sure that it's there, I'm gonna probably focus my aim in a certain specific location to try to locate the enemy and eliminate them. Now, in many cases, less is more, and by this I mean that if you learn how to communicate with the least amount of words, this of course makes the overall voice communication less crowded, so not many people are actually talking at the same time. So the thing is, you need to give very precise and accurate words so people can understand what you mean very fast, because there's might be some action right happening, and if everybody's gonna talk like 5 or 10 words just to explain something, just imagine how everything would sound. Kind of chaotic, right? Now, it's important to keep things short, not to confuse yourself and your teammates. So, because when you talk and play at the same time, you can make mistakes, right? So, important just to get this information fast and make it accurate, and continue focusing on the gameplay. And it's actually happened quite a lot yesterday. I was playing with random players, and they know when I was actually the last one, they said, for example, hookah, window, right side, right, even with just one word. And actually this really helped me, because I was able to focus on both on my aiming and location and paying attention, because everything can happen in a split of a second. So their very short hints really helped me to win a match. Now, another important thing is having kind of unifying terms to describe things. Now, if you paired with a certain group, always probably you're going to have your own communication words and terms. But the thing is that if you don't have a constant group, you're probably going to find yourself playing with maybe a few friends and other random people. And the thing is, when we have unified terms to describe things and way of communication, other people who we haven't played with can understand us. Now the thing is that if you play with people that are speaking different languages, if you know some technical terms and jargons, you don't actually need to say a lot. You just mention those terms and people will completely understand what you mean. Especially if you are playing with random players and those who don't speak your language. So it doesn't matter if you speak English, Spanish, French, it doesn't matter. If you know how to say different things, certain words, people will understand you no matter what language they speak. So it's a great advantage. Actually, yesterday it happened when somebody said a certain location in a certain way and the other person didn't understand anything. Now, I'm sure in some way this will be understandable by the community because eventually more people will adopt different type of technical terms. And I think it's going to be something online regarding this. So eventually this will become common and eventually more people will say the right words and the right terms and be able to communicate with those. But it will take time. But the thing is that it's important to understand what most of the players actually using and use those terms. And eventually it will become common over time. Now the other thing is constructive criticism. And this is, I think, very important, especially for new players like myself or if you are playing with less experienced player. The thing is that when you want to criticize other people's gameplay or highlight their mistakes, some people do exactly the opposite. Instead of saying to the player, for example, what they should improve, they say, for example, why did you do that? Why did you do this? Instead of saying like something what you should do, because maybe there are many things that shouldn't be done, right? But the person who is playing should know what they should have done. It's also important to know how to say things because you can say things like in a very rude manner, and this also of course will lead to the other person not even listening to you, even muting you, so we actually lose any type of good communication with the players. And because this is going to affect the gameplay, and eventually we actually might lose the round because of this, because of the lack of communication. So it's important to understand that people might be sensitive to talking to in a certain way. So if you're going to give a kind of a constructive criticism to players, try to say it in a way that won't insult them. For example, you can say something like, listen, I saw you do that. I think it's maybe better for you to do things this way. Of course, you might see some people saying, yo, you knew, what are you doing? Why didn't you go A? Such a bad player. This is actually the worst thing you can do, and eventually people will just mute you, and you're just hurting yourself. You eventually will lose. You want to win the match. So you need to think about the goal. The goal is to win, right? Eventually to win the match. And how are you going to do this? One of the things is having good communication skills, and you always need to remember that. Now, if you're going to take this negativity and frustration and channel this towards player, eventually you'll find yourself losing matches and won't actually achieving your goal. And many people actually achieving goals in life are able to make those smart thinking and not being too emotionally impacted by other people's mistakes. If you do this well, eventually you'll find players actually listening to you, and you can win match even when playing with players that are less experienced than you. Aside from that, it's more fun to play like this, right? And you can do whatever you want, yeah? I'm not telling you what to do. And if you think, oh, dude, those people are just playing so bad, I'm going to say whatever I want, do whatever you want. I'm just saying to you, eventually it will come and you'll be against you. So you will make your own decision, but just know that if you act in a certain way, there are some consequences to that. The other thing is learning from your mistakes and also telling others so they can learn from our mistakes as well. I think this is the thing that people rarely do, from what I can tell. And usually when I watch people play and say something No way! What the fuck? Things like this. They kind of, I think it's kind of maybe a denial state. I don't know. But eventually, like sometimes they don't acknowledge their mistakes and they think there's something wrong with their game and they blame anything but themselves. So, for example, when I make a mistake, I like to share this with other players so they can learn from my mistakes. In this game, I still play with random players, so I haven't done this too much. But some kind of mentioning my mistake was just saying that I made a mistake. But for example, when I play an Overwatch with a friend, I always kind of said what I did wrong, so they can actually learn from my mistakes, the one that I made. So it's like the same as sharing information in the game. If you people need to learn from their mistakes and other people's mistakes, and you can see this done in many competitive players. For example, people just go over other people's gameplay and their gameplay in order to see what the mistake they actually done in order to try to not repeat them the second time. Now, I'm not saying that you should do this over analyzing and watch your own gameplays. Yeah, of course, many people won't do that. But what I'm saying is that if you share a few things that you think that you made a big mistake or something, or a mistake that actually caused the team to lose, for example, it's important to share those so other people can learn from it. So the most important thing in general is to make sure you have kind of mindset on the goal, and the goal here is to win the match rather than wasting time, your time and other people's time about some things that don't actually help at all. And this, I think, is kind of something that common with successful people. They focus on their goals instead of just stopping at every single thing, every single problem and issue and spending time on this. So if you want to succeed in this game, I think it's important to develop this mindset, understand what's important and what is less important, and focus on the important things. Now, again, I just want to say that I'm a new player to Valorant. I'm kind of an average player, but these are the things that I've learned from playing first-person shooter games, and this becomes especially important in games like Valorant. Although I have no plan to actually play competitively, and I'm definitely above the age to be so, and my reaction time is really not that good. But the thing is that part of the fun of me playing a game like Valorant is adopting all those things and eventually being able to succeed and winning. This feels more satisfying as a player, and this makes the game, this specific game, much more entertaining for me compared to other first-person shooters that I played. So there are probably other things that I haven't mentioned, but the thing is that these are important things that I wanted to share with you, and I hope that you take something with you and will become a better player. Especially if you are a beginner, because experienced players are already familiar with all those. They don't need anyone else to tell them that, I think. So if you're a new player, I hope this one is useful for you. More videos are coming with tips and tricks how to play Valorant and play better. So I hope you enjoyed this one, and of course I will continue playing and share my moments and the things that I learn as I play. So thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Don't forget to subscribe. Bye bye everyone. Cheers.